What's up, everybody? Let's get into it. This is your women's natty title game prediction winner review video. First off, congrats to the UCLA Bruins, this year's women's 2025-2026 national champions. But to recap, let's get into it. For the predictions for my women's March Madness tournament, for the women's Sweet 16, I went 10-6. For the women's Elite 8, I went 8-0. For the women's Final Four, I went 3-1. For my women's Natty title game predictions, where I picked the two teams that were going to make the Natty title game, I went 1-1. And then for the women's Natty title game, as far as predicting the winner, I got that one wrong. So I went 0-1 for the women's Natty title game prediction. I went 0-1 as far as predicting the women's Natty title game. I went 0-1 as far as picking the winner for the Natty title game right. So I got the Natty title game right. I got the Natty title game wrong. So 0-1 for the Natty title game. Last year I got it right. This year I got it wrong. So that will bring my total up to, I was 22-8 going into the national championship. That will bring my total up between the women's Sweet 16. That will bring my grand total. I will finish with a grand total between the women's Sweet 16, women's Elite 8, women's Final Four, women's Natty, the two teams that will make the women's Natty title game, and the women's Natty title game winner. That brings my grand total to 22-9 for this year's women's March Madness tournament. That's up from last year. I think last year, if I remember right, I went 20-11. So I was two better this year. But anyways, before I go any further, I do want to say congrats to all 64 teams that made the field this year. It takes it's a long season with playing with conference tournaments and some teams having to win their conference tournament championship. And then you got the last four, men and women, same like last four. You have a playing game just to get into the tournament. So all 64 of them teams have nothing to hang their heads about. The 62 other teams that didn't make it to the national champion, the 62 other teams that didn't make the national championship game have nothing to hang their heads about. So congrats to all 64 teams that made the congrats to all 64 teams that made the NCAA March Madness tournament for the women. Congratulations to all those that made the Elite 8, Final Four, and congrats to UCLA and South Carolina on this year's national championship game appearances. Congrats to South Carolina on a well-played season. Came up just a little short this year. That's 2 years in a row now they've lost the national title game, but that's heartbreaking when you lose two in a row like that. But anyways, and they didn't just lose them. Last year they lost to UConn in I don't remember what it was. It was like 20-some points. They lost to UCLA this year by 20-some points. They lost. Last year they lost to UCLA. Last year, South Carolina lost the national championship game to UConn by 20-some points. This year they lost. Last year, South Carolina lost last year's national championship game to UConn by 20-some points. This year, once again, South Carolina loses in the national championship game. This year, once again, South Carolina loses in the national championship game to UCLA by 20-some points. But that's not the way you want to end your season, but, at least they made it there. But once again, big congrats to UCLA on winning their first women's national title. So congratulations once again, congratulations to your UCLA. Once again, congratulations to your lady Once again, congrats to the women's national champions, the women's UCLA Bruins, on their first national championship. The UCLA Bruins are your UCLA Bruins are your women's 2025-2026 women's national champions. Your UCLA Lady Bruins are your women's 2025-2026 national champions. Congrats to them. Y'all have a great night.